Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. I'm your host, Andy Bernstein. Folks, have you ever watched a sporting event on TV and wondered how they got those amazing shots? Tight close-ups of the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand, a tremendous slam dunk, a golfer's beautiful swing, a speeding NASCAR car going down the track, or a spontaneous reaction. So many of those shots just take your breath away. Well, our guest today is responsible for so many of those. His name is Patrick Rondou. No, he's not a household name, but I bet if you're listening or watching this podcast, you have seen Patrick's work up close and personal in your living room. Patrick and I worked side by side for over 3 decades covering the NBA. Me on the still photo side and Patrick as one of the elite videographers in our business. He's a 17-time Emmy winner. Yes, that's right, 17-time Emmy winner. He's covered 35 NBA Finals, 12 World Series, 11 Super Bowls, 10 NCAA basketball tournaments and Final Fours, 15 combined Winter and Summer Olympics, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. In his spare time, Patrick also shot over 3,500 Oprah Winfrey shows and 8 seasons of The Steve Harvey Show. Nicknamed Cheese by our mutual friend Andy Rosenberg, Patrick is a really great guy with a welcoming personality. Patrick was a fixture, as I was, at all the NBA's biggest events. I loved working next to him, whether it was during player arrivals, pregame, on-court celebrations, championship locker room chaos, wherever. I loved working next to Patrick. He and I shared time in the NBA bubble in 2020. I was only there 53 days. Patrick spent the full 100 days in the bubble. Incredible. So sit back and enjoy this episode with the legendary Patrick Rondou. And as always, I'll see you on the backside. Welcome, Patrick Rondou, to the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. How are you, my friend, and where are you?
I am great. I'm in Chicago.
Okay.
I have a couple days off between these NBA playoff things
Yeah.
going on. So our crew, we're not doing anything until tomorrow. We're heading to New York for games. What would that be? Games 3 and 4
3 and
with
4,
the
yeah.
Knicks in Boston.
Yeah.
And so I had a couple days, so this works out really perfect. But I wanted to say, thank you for having me, for
Oh, of
sure.
course,
This
man.
is really cool. And thank you for Tom Fletcher for the one. He kind of encouraged me, and I know he talked to you. And I don't
Absolutely.
know if he's listening or watching this, but if I want to thank Tom a
Well,
lot. He's been great. I've known him for a long time, and he's been a great mentor to me too.
yeah,
So
for sure. Yeah, Tom and I had a long chat yesterday, and he's a big fan of yours too. So that's a great thing.
good. That's good.
So, Patrick, first of all, you and I known each other. I don't even know how long. Probably close to 40 years, right? I
At
think.
least, yeah.
And we've worked side by side, literally side by side, like
Yeah.
hip to hip, shoulder to shoulder on NBA courts for that long.
Mhm.
I've always watched you, and probably you watch me peripherally just to make sure I'm not getting in your
Sure.
shot, you're not getting in my shot. But that's a whole other conversation. We could have it down the road during this podcast. But it's just so great, like somebody that I've worked around for so long. You and I never really sat down, had a long conversation. I mean, we just know each other
Yeah,
from being
exactly.
being in the trenches, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got to find out, man. You told me that VJ Livero,
Mm,
my dear friend who passed
mm,
way too soon. I mean, VJ's been gone, man. I think what 20 years now at
at
least.
least, yeah.
Was a very young man when he passed away. VJ was a great photographer for Sports Illustrated. He was the Angels team photographer when I
Right.
was the Dodgers photographer. Tell me how that friendship started with VJ and how he helped you get into sports photography.
I'll kind of give you the Reader's Digest version
Yeah.
because it is kind of a long story, but it's really great.
Hmm.
High school, I was going to be drafted. I had scouts looking at me, and a player named Dan Briggs. Danny Briggs
Hmm.
was a couple years older than me. We played on varsity baseball, and so long story short, I get in a car accident. I broke my wrist. So, no, I was like damaged goods
Hmm.
basically.
Yeah.
And so, I went to college, got a degree in marketing and working at a company actually right across from Anaheim Stadium, right across the 57 freeway there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my dad's company,
Yeah.
and doing marketing and things like that. And so one day I'm driving home, and this had to have been 1976, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
76, 77. And I hear on the radio Danny Briggs coming up from AAA. He was in Salt Lake City for the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, oh my God, this will be awesome. He made it.
Mm-hmm.
And I grabbed I had a little Nikon F camera.
Uh-huh.
And of course, back then there's no pandemic or any of that stuff, so I could sneak my way down to the field. I got his attention,
Uh-huh.
and he came over, and I said, I'm going to get a picture for the Sonoma. We went to Sonoma High School,
Okay.
small
Yeah.
Northern California school,
Yeah.
and not a lot of famous athletes came out of there, but Danny was one. Danny was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I played baseball with him all through Little League
Mm-hmm.
and all through high school and everything. And got his attention. He posed for me, and the PR girl came over and said, "Yeah, let's
What
take
are you
these
doing?
pictures. Why don't you come down on the field?" And I'm
Right.
like, "Oh my God!" So I stepped down on the field. And back then too, they didn't have kids running bases. They didn't have any. It was sacred ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that feeling of stepping onto the field with the crushed brick. I can still remember, it gives me shivers, and
Yeah.
it was just so cool. And so I'm taking pictures of Danny, and I said, okay, I'm gonna take him up, send him. I guess I had to mail him back then, right?
Right.
There was no internet or anything, and I couldn't upload them. So I took these pictures, and I actually kind of befriended the PR girl. She was real nice.
Uh-huh.
And she said, "Oh, well, I'll give you a little pass so you can come back and take some pictures." Dan, well, I didn't know anything about really photography that much,
Mm-hmm.
just the basics. And so when after I sent the pictures up to Sonoma, they gave me a little byline,
Mm-hmm.
and I kept going to the Anaheim Stadium. So I'd be working 9 to 5. My office, I could see Anaheim Stadium from my office.
Yeah.
And so as soon as 5 o'clock, man, if the Angels were at home,
Mm-hmm.
I was over there taking pictures of Danny. I got to meet all the PR people.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I met VJ.
Mm-hmm.
And, VJ's like, phew, big time, Sports Illustrated. He was doing the Angels, like you said, the Dodgers. And we just became kind of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my little camera, and I just, for some reason, he kind of latched onto me, and I latched onto him to learn photography.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't in the TV part of it yet.
Right.
And so he said, "Yeah, you're welcome. Of course, no pay or anything, but you can, shoot pictures and use the dark room and develop them." And so he kind of taught me all that stuff
That's
about
great.
photography. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
one day, I'm down there shooting. Again, another side part of that story is I saw what all the other photographers had. Now, my brother at the time wasn't a professional photographer either.
Mm-hmm.
He turned out to be one.
Mm-hmm.
He went to school with Freddie Lynn, who was
Sure. I remember Freddie Lynn.
played for the oh yeah played for the Red Sox.
Right.
Blah blah blah. He came in, and Mike, my brother Mike, didn't know a whole lot about photography either,
Mm-hmm.
but he knew Freddie. Same kind of situation where I got him down on the field. He had his little camera around his neck and talked to Freddie because they played high school together. Mike was a pitcher. Freddie was an outfielder.
Mm-hmm.
El Monte High School in
Yeah.
California,
Yeah.
and so that's how Mike got started.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I remember being down there one day, and I didn't really like developing, being in the dark room with the chemicals, and
Mm-hmm.
I'd be there till 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm doing it because I loved it. I
Right.
mean, it was so cool to be down on the field and taking pictures. But I saw what all the other photographers, they had these big Nikon lenses and blah blah blah. And so I went over to Adrays. Adrays was the
Yeah, I
place in
remember ad rates. Yeah.
Southern California to buy your gear. I went over there and bought a 400, would have been a 400 2.8. It
Too
was the
late. Yeah.
expensive one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a Nikon F3 with an MD4 motor drive, whatever. I had
Yeah.
all these motor drives. I got whatever the professional photographers had, and I just started shooting. And VJ and I just became really good friends. And then one day I'm looking over, and I see this guy in this camera well with this giant camera with this big lens.
Yeah.
And I just kind of went over and said, "What's this?" And he was working I think it was KTLA, right, in Los Angeles,
Yeah.
and televising the games. And instead of blowing me off, he said, "Oh, here, I'll show you, and here, get behind the camera, and here's how you focus, here's how you zoom." And I went, "Okay." That was something I learned. It's called a significant emotional event.
Uh-huh.
It was at that moment where I said, that's what I want to do.
Wow.
I don't want to do this. I love the photography and
Yeah.
everything, but I want instant gratification.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Not, when the game's over, you put the bag over the camera and you walk away. There's no developing film
Yeah,
and
right.
all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
and what's funny with VJ, real
Mhm.
quick, is one, when I got heavily into working with NBC and we were doing the World Series or doing any major event, VJ
Mhm.
was always there.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so and I didn't know a lot of the other photographers, but
yeah.
I knew VJ really well.
Mhm.
He took such good care of me when I did this with the Angels for like 2 years, and then I got into TV.
Yeah.
Working for free, just loved being there on the field.
Mhm.
And I would sneak him, I'd go into our catering and I'd sneak VJ food, because they didn't feed those guys.
Right,
And I'd
exactly.
always bring VJ food
It was like
and
the haves and the haves not. Yeah,
yeah.
it still is.
And so we had a really good relationship. And
Right.
I also got really good with Rod Carew
Mhm.
and taught Rod Carew. And then I was actually going on the road just on the West Coast. So we'd go up to Oakland
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Seattle or something.
Right.
And we'd go out and take pictures and I would show Rod Carew. I just developed it. It enabled me to develop all these great friendships,
Sure.
just like yourself.
Yeah.
I would see you at the Forum back then. I would
Right.
see you, at all these different arenas or at the Coliseum for a Raiders game or a
Mhm.
Rams game.
Mhm.
And we'd always see each other and you just develop all these great relationships. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it started with VJ.
Oh, that's so interesting, man. And what
Yeah.
a great, sweet, wonderful, talented beyond anything guy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he was shooting
A
hockey
legend.
when the Ducks first started, and
Hmm.
I'd go down there to Anaheim. He'd come up to LA. I mean, we crossed paths a lot,
Yeah.
and
No, he was a legend, and
yeah,
unfortunately, he passed. But
yeah,
I still think of him.
yeah, yeah. Me too. So listen, I'm reading your bio that you sent me, and we did some research too. And Tom gave me a bunch of stuff. I mean,
Okay.
17 Emmys in sports and entertainment. Seriously, I mean,
Yeah.
who's got enough shelves to put 17 Emmys?
Well, they're actually still in boxes stacked up in a closet.
Well, let's talk
I
about the first one, the first Emmy. What was that for?
Actually, the very first one would
Yeah.
have been NBC Super Bowl, and I don't remember the number. I'd have to, but I remember I believe we're in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that Super Bowl that
Yeah.
was played in Phoenix,
Okay.
I think that was my first.
Wow.
Now you got to
Okay.
remember too, I got, like 3 or 4 from the Oprah show.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So that was the entertainment portion of it.
Right.
And I would have got another 20
Mm.
but she knew that we're going to win every year. And it was
Right.
kind of, she's like, let's just stop.
Yeah.
She cut herself off even,
Mm-hmm.
and gave Ellen the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
and the other talk shows at the time
Mm-hmm.
to also win, an Emmy and get some acknowledgement. But
Yeah.
so yeah, a
Uh-huh.
lot of sports ones, and I think,
Mm.
but nominated every year for something. Usually, I'm in a category like this year. I think I'm getting another one. We'll see
God
for
willing.
the Paris Olympics.
Awesome, dude. Well,
I did opening ceremonies and track and field,
yeah.
and I'm also in it for the Usually, I'm in like two. If there's 4 or 5 categories, I'm in at least two.
Wow. That's so
Last
great.
year's was for what was that, for the Masters?
Mm-hmm.
Or no, Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
I
Yeah.
was in 4 of the 5 categories. I'm
Yeah.
not bragging or anything. I'm just saying I
Yeah.
do these major events,
Mm-hmm.
and for Team Technical,
Mm-hmm.
we usually get nominated.
That's
So
amazing. I mean,
yeah,
35 finals. I did 40, but we did all 35
yeah,
next to each other.
right.
11 Super Bowls, 12 World Series, 10 NCAA tournaments and Final Fours, Masters, I mean,
Hmm.
15 Olympics. Really? Summer and winter combined?
Summer and winter combined. Yeah,
Wow.
that's summer and winter.
That's so interesting. I think Jim Lampley tied you because he and I talked about it on the podcast a couple of weeks ago that he did summer and winter. And I
Yeah,
think it was around 15 as well.
yeah,
But what I find really interesting about you is that like you're kind of like when you went to Chicago, your day job was doing studio
yeah.
camera work, which
Hmm.
is I mean, there's not a lot. Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not a lot of creativity going on when you're shooting like a 3 or 4 camera setup on an Oprah
Yeah,
show or Steve Harvey or whatever. I
right.
mean, yes, of course you're a creative guy, but then on the weekends you're like you're out, man.
I'm out.
you're doing sports, right? First of all,
Yeah, that,
that schedule is insane because I can imagine you working
oh,
5 days a week in the studio and then all hell breaks loose on the weekend.
no, actually worked out really good. Oprah tapings were Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay,
On a plane Thursday night, home Monday, back in the studio Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I did that for probably over 20 years
unbelievable. So
of
so no such
seven
thing in
days a week kind of stuff.
so no such thing in your world as work life balance, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's work and
and
work
and
balance.
and you would think
Yeah,
working the Oprah shows, like, because we did over 3,500 shows.
sure.
A
Wow.
lot of them were that was the topic,
Yeah.
like making your life better,
Hmm.
and but I'm telling you, I loved it.
Yeah.
I I
Amazing. I mean,
I've always traveled well.
uh-huh.
I was paid well,
Hmm.
and now I'm able to enjoy the fruits of that labor. So
Yeah.
now,
Hmm.
at this point in my career, I can enjoy. I don't have to do
Yeah.
7 days a
You don't
week
have to kill
anymore.
yourself. But
I Yeah.
it was the traveling that like was probably I guess 1A of I just can't do this anymore. I mean, 40 years on the road, schlepping equipment. I mean,
Yeah.
you've seen me, I've seen you
Hmm.
at the arena at 11 o'clock in the morning for a 7:30 or 8 o'clock game,
Yeah.
setting up my cameras on the backboards and everywhere else. And you
Right.
guys are doing your camera testing and meetings and all that.
Hmm.
And we'd always
Hmm.
like, you and Victor Smith and all my other friends, we all just like nod at each other, like, yeah, we're here too.
Hmm. Hmm.
Unbelievable, man. Um, so this is really kind of a dumb question, but can you give me the top 3 events that you've covered? Like if you had to put those like in your whatever in top line of your bio, specific events because I can, for example, NBA Finals. I can go back to the '85 Finals. Like it was just to me that was the best finals ever. I can
And
go.
I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah, I can go to Kirk Gibson's, Homer in '88, that kind of thing. I heard a rumor about something about you with Muhammad Ali and the Olympic torch.
Oh,
That might
yeah.
be at the top of your list. So yeah, give
Yeah.
me a couple of those.
That was well. First, people ask me that quite often. They say,
Mm-hmm.
"What's was the best thing you've ever done?" It's always usually Olympics is my
Mm-hmm.
first answer,
Mm-hmm.
and not any specific ones. I mean, I had some favorite ones, locations wise: Australia, London,
Mm-hmm.
and Paris was nice too. The most recent, but you know, Athens, Greece, and then all the Winter Olympics all over the place.
Yeah.
Um, but the '96 Olympics, with NBC, and
Uh-huh.
my shot was to have Muhammad Ali,
Mm.
and Andy Rosenberg was our director, of
Sure.
course,
Yeah.
and I was next to my good friend Bob Basile,
Mm-hmm.
and I was doing the tight action kind of camera and track and field, but we're doing the opening ceremony. So Muhammad's, Patrick, or they called me Cheese.
Yeah, that I wanted to
Your
find
shot
that
is,
the I wanted to find out the genesis of that, but that's after
oh,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
it's not that exciting,
Yeah.
but I'll share it with you. But
Uh,
so we're doing the ceremonies, and when that shot happened, I was kind of this, I think, a pretty much waist up,
mhm.
and Muhammad's going to light the torch.
Yeah.
Well, he had
Yeah, I
Parkinson's,
was
and my
there in the
father.
stadium. I
Oh,
witnessed
you
it.
were
I
there.
didn't
Okay.
shoot it because they didn't let us on the field with the team,
Oh,
but
okay.
I was there in Atlanta, of course, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I'm looking through my viewfinder at this man, shaking with the
Yeah.
Parkinson's, and my father had Parkinson's.
Ah, okay. Uh-huh.
And I just remember the tears just streaming
Mm,
down my.
God.
I get emotional when I think about
Oh,
it.
for sure. Absolutely.
That was,
It was unbelievable that he was able to do that. I mean,
yeah.
and that the whole world literally was watching that moment.
And
Incredible.
then
Yeah.
I got to meet him. I was doing a camera, and he was actually, his box was next to my camera in
Mhm.
Australia.
Oh, uh-huh.
That was in, what was Australia, 2000.
2000, yeah. Hmm.
And I got to meet him, and he was kind of okay, kind of in and out, little incoherent, but I
Yeah.
shared that story with him, and
Oh,
his wife loved it.
that's so great.
It was just a really emotional time for me. So,
Yeah, I bet. Well, that's got to be top of the list, man. There's
but
got to be a
yeah.
couple other ones. Look, you and I we've been to I don't know how many game sevens together, in
Mm.
playoffs and finals. I kept counting, and I stopped counting of all the playoff games and finals I've been in a game seven. The pressure of that, right? And usually you're mid court, right? You're on the court most of
Yeah,
the time, right?
I've been on that camera. Geez, the first couple years I wasn't. I
Mm-hmm.
had to break into NBC 89, 90,
Yeah.
91. 91, the first Bulls championship.
Yeah.
I was actually doing center court, but reverse.
Oh,
So I
on the
was
other
on
side.
where the
Right.
players come in,
Right.
doing player reaction, coach, Phil Jackson reactions, that
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
Mhm.
So I did that. I had to earn my way
Mhm.
through, and then I did a couple years of the tight ISO camera, which was got some really cool,
Mm.
iconic shots. Reggie Miller,
Yeah, yeah, that's your
and
shot, of course.
and then
Yeah.
there was an opening at center court, and Andy said, "Do you want to do that?" And oh my God,
Yeah.
absolutely! And that was the super motion camera back then. It
Yeah.
was kind of new technology.
Mhm.
But I've been doing it ever since. So it's,
Incredible.
yeah, yeah.
Well, let's talk about that spot and also my what used to be my spot under the basket.
Hmm.
Um, so there are people sitting behind us, behind
Hmm.
me, next to you, behind you, that are
Right,
not particularly thrilled with us being in their
right,
space. In
right.
fact, if you remember back in the Detroit Piston days when Bill
Hmm.
Davidson owned the team, not only could there not be a photographer in front of him on the court, he couldn't have any photographers in the entire quadrant. Right. So this is when we were packing 12, 15 photographers in each of the four quadrants, and the
Right.
NBA would have to leave that quadrant open. So I'm sure your persuasive personality, just like mine. I mean, you got to look. We had to put up with a lot. I mean, I did. You still do, and the
Yeah.
fans are not loving us being there.
Yeah.
How have you worked with that over the
Yeah.
years?
Well, I think when I first went to college and I was working at this company in city of Orange, we did a lot of team building sessions.
Hmm.
And so I was able to learn about how to make people literally jump off a bridge and be happy they're doing it. There's these little things that you can
Yeah,
do.
I love
And
it.
so when I'm down there and now, see, originally, remember, we were in front of the table
Yes, I remember.
until the incident of a referee getting tripped.
Right.
So then they moved us to the side.
Uh huh.
So usually the people beside me, and there usually aren't too many people directly behind me now
Hmm.
because we managed to put the stage manager position there. So
Right.
that kind of helps me from behind.
Yes. Yeah.
But from the side, I talk to them. I
Yeah.
say, "Hey," and we've been doing this so long. It's been a lot of times the same
Yeah.
people
Same people,
over all the years.
and they're basically nice until you get some
Absolutely.
that aren't. But
But see, you have to approach them, and I say, "We've got some waters here.
yeah.
I've got some snacks.
Yeah.
You let me know if you need anything, or if I'm in your way, you let me know, and we'll work this out, because
Yeah.
that they're paying 20, NBA finals, 20, 30, $40,000.
Crazy.
But also with that is sometimes it'll be somebody new,
Yeah.
and they're pretty cool. They're like, they see us, and our announce tables there, and they can see Doris and Mike Breen, and now it's Richard Jefferson,
Yeah.
and which it's pretty neat. But you know what I always get? I always get the tap on the shoulder,
Uh-huh.
and they say, how did you get this job?
I get that same
How
thing. Yeah.
how are you sitting right here for
Mhm.
this job and you're getting paid?
Right, right.
So I always find that to be a lot of fun. But again, it's just doing PR.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just you have to be good with people and be nice.
yeah.
I haven't had too many incidences really. I probably maybe once or twice in my career where somebody got kind of belligerent or
Mhm.
but I've heard horror stories from other guys
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Well, from I think
that didn't fare too well. So
yeah. I mean, look, those baselines and sidelines in some arenas are so tight.
oh
I mean, the Clippers' new arena, beautiful arena, but there's no chance like a grown human could sit in the box that's painted
right.
on the court. It's just
Uh,
impossible. So you sit there and you got people straddling you with their legs or
yep.
they're pushing on you or whatever, and you just got to take it. So,
Well, on that point, and you were asking me about my favorite events. My number two was the NBA bubble, and I thought for sure
uh-huh.
that was going to change because the players loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no photographers. Everybody was behind
Right.
the stanchions or behind the advertising. The players were. There was no worry about running over photographer, running you over,
Yeah.
cutting their head open like LeBron did that one game
Yeah.
we were doing.
Yeah.
um, it was we proved that even if you're back another 4 feet,
Mhm.
you're going to buy that ticket.
Y-
And same thing in San Antonio before
Yeah.
they built their new stadium when we were in the Alamo Dome
Oh, I
doing.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
remember all that room?
Oh, there's a lot of room. Too much
People were
room. Yeah.
people were back what 15 feet or
Yeah.
they bought tickets.
Yeah. No, it's
Are you
true.
kidding me? Of
Yeah.
course they did. But it was so safe for everybody. And I've been a big actually, for me,
Mhm.
I've actually told a lot of the crewers, local crewers
Mhm.
in Chicago and wherever, I kind of refuse to do the cameras under the basket anymore because
Mm.
we're right in the line of fire.
Yeah. Yeah, for
You're
sure.
out a little bit
Uh-huh.
further, but we're in close to that stanchion.
Right.
And every game we do, one of either it's
Mhm.
Victor Smith, or Bert Richardson's on my
Yeah.
right,
Right.
they get run over.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm too old for that.
No, you and me
And in
both.
my
That.
early days of
Yeah.
doing all the Bulls home games,
Right.
we got hammered all the time.
All the
But
time. It was so
you're
physical
20
back
years
then
old.
too. Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I remember it and I don't miss it. I had Shaq take me out 3 times
Oh
in my
God,
career and the third time I thought I was dead.
it's
But it's
painful.
a whole other story. Um wow. Let's talk about technology, okay? Because you
Okay.
and I have seen drastic changes
Mhm.
in your world and in my world. Of course, my world went from analog and film to digital around the early 2000s. The NBA went full digital around 2004. Okay, we started easing digital into the repertoire of the cameras we
Right.
use, but
Right.
um, I wasn't particularly thrilled with it, to be honest with you. I love the everything about film. I love loading film. I love looking at it and
Mm.
processing it and waiting for it and uh, you know the tactile feeling of it and the whole thing. I mean,
Oh yeah,
I
I agree.
can't hold up a CF card and say, I created this as some ones and zeros in there somewhere, But I can hold up a piece of film and say I created that. Um, has it been that drastic in your world? Because video, obviously there's no film involved. I mean, we both
No,
know our NBA entertainment friends who shoot film, and I don't know if they still do. They might actually still shoot film once in a while. But in your
some people
world,
do.
things have
Yeah.
changed a lot, right, with the
Hmm.
technology.
Yeah. The cameras haven't gotten any lighter.
Yeah, which is
Um,
unfortunate, right? You would think they would
that's
over the years. Yeah.
that's one thing I know for sure.
Hmm.
Because I have pictures of myself in the old days, and they were, we averaged 26, 28,
Yeah.
depending on whether if you're running an RF camera,
Wow.
which doesn't have a cable or anything.
Yeah.
You got batteries on there, you got a transmitter.
Jeez.
Now you're here, now you're hitting 32, 34 pounds.
Yeah.
Um, but we're all high definition and 1080p 60 frames
Hmm.
and I shoot arrivals. You've seen me now with this little gimbal
Right.
camera
Yes. Yeah.
versus this $100,000 camera. I've got this $800 camera that looks
But I
literally
saw you
almost
do
just
that.
as
I think it
good.
was last year, my last season. And we joked about it. I said, "What do you have the
Yeah.
night off?" I mean, it's like you got this like little consumer
It's
camera, but
awesome.
of course it
It
wasn't.
just
But
makes
yeah,
everybody's life so much easier. So the technology
yeah,
has gotten great, but to get back to your point on film, there's
mhm,
nothing like film. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
come on.
yeah, absolutely.
Seriously, we have in even in that little camera that I use, I can shoot 24 frames. I can
Mm,
shoot film style. Um,
yeah,
but they call it cinematic, but it doesn't match it.
yeah.
But but the technology, oh my gosh, you go into our if, I don't know, have you ever been into our TV trucks? Did you
I
ever take
have.
a
I
tour? Okay.
our good friend Andy Rosenberg actually brought me in
Oh,
there a
great.
couple of times. And once when the VR stuff was being tested and all that,
Right.
and that was
Right.
like insane. I mean,
Yeah.
it's if people haven't been in a TV truck, at some point you got to try to do it or watch a documentary because it is unbelievable what goes on in that place.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
television station on wheels.
yeah, yeah,
Literally.
yeah.
Yeah, and we have this new fleet of trucks
Right.
that we're taking out for the NBA Finals
Ah,
flagship. Yeah,
okay.
they're absolutely gorgeous trucks, and so
Incredible.
I'm looking for that. But the technology, it's we still shoot the same,
Mm-hmm.
even though the technology has gotten better.
Yeah,
For at home, you can, I mean, the quality is pretty remarkable,
yeah,
but the hardware pretty much stayed the same. We still got the tripods that weigh a ton. We still have
yeah, yeah.
camera bodies that weigh a ton. Lenses now have actually gotten even heavier
Oh wow, that's
for
crazy.
the hard camera guys.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Wow.
these Fujinon that Tom Fletcher has, these Fuji 120, 1025s,
Jeez.
kind of a cinematic lens, really cool stuff,
Yeah.
really great technology.
Mm-hmm.
These things are over 100 pounds. I mean,
That's
you
insane.
know, and you're
Yeah.
trying to put this thing up and, building in an arena and, oh,
Oh, crazy. Well, let's talk about Fujinon for a sec because what I understand, and I don't know a lot about your side of the world, honestly, because my world is all about still and everything. But I would
mhm.
watch you guys, but gotten to know Tom and the folks at Fujifilm and Fujinon, I understand that they're like the gold standard.
Oh,
That their
absolutely.
stuff is like in my world like Zeiss lenses or whatever.
Right.
What makes their stuff so much better?
Uh, just the quality of the construction of them.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I like about Fujinon
Mm-hmm.
a lot is their controls that come with the lenses.
Ah.
Um,
Uh-huh.
they're really more ergonomically designed.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to function better. People, I work with operators all over the world, and so people like the Fujinon
Mm-hmm.
so much better than the competition.
Yeah.
Um, and the nice thing I like about the Fuji lenses is you see those shots at Dodger Stadium, and all you see is the glove going up over the wall and the ball going in it.
Crazy.
So somebody's shooting at 900 millimeters
Yeah.
in 2 times extender, and it's tack sharp
Oh, it's crazy. Oh, you
and it
see the
doesn't fall off. And
yeah.
what I mean by fall off is when you keep moving so many lens elements, you get to a point where there's just not enough light,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it gets dark. So they call it like a falling off.
Yeah.
The
Huh.
Fuji's don't do that.
Yeah.
They're just top notch. It's great
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, yeah, we could talk about this forever, but I mean,
Oh
like
yeah.
the shot of the ball coming out of the pitcher's hand, where you could like
Hmm.
see the seams on the
See the
ball.
seams. Yep.
It's
Yep.
incredible to me. Wow.
Now that's what I do in NBA when
Yeah.
I'm center court. I have a 6 times super slow mo, and it's really really high speed.
Wow,
It's
that's
a lot
fascinating.
of frames. I think it's 120
Yeah.
frames or something like that, right around
Jeez.
there. But you can read,
Yeah.
Spalding,
Yeah.
and blah
Yeah.
blah blah. You see the seams of the little big orange ball.
That's incredible. So, Tom told me, and you mentioned earlier that you're doing, you're giving back to the next generation.
Yeah,
You're doing seminars, and you're out there
yeah,
in the field getting the next generation or the current
yeah,
generation kind of up to speed.
yeah.
You
So
enjoying that?
yeah, so kind of what it is when it started, it was, bringing new people in,
Mm-hmm.
Fujinon, um, and Tom would call me and say, "We'd like you to get these kids are coming in. We've got these kids coming in, and they
Mm-hmm.
want to learn how to use this stuff."
Yeah.
Um, all the way from setting up. safety is my most important thing. These are $300,000 cameras
Yeah.
when they're put together, and you don't want it falling over in the stands
Right.
because you didn't tighten this knob or didn't. There's a lot to it,
Yeah.
actually, putting these things together. So I was so happy when we did the first one, and I really, really loved it.
Hmm.
In fact, I've always said, people say, when are you going to retire? What are you going to do? Well, play music is one of my things that I do when I'm not working.
Uh-huh.
But I always wanted to teach,
Yeah.
and I think I'm pretty good at it. I
Hmm.
think I'm really calm. I can pretty much answer 98% of the questions.
Hmm.
When it gets really into heavy technology,
Hmm.
that's why I'm not working inside the truck patching all those things.
Yeah.
But as far as the cameras go and assembly, disassembly,
Hmm.
and answering questions. How do you follow that little white ball
Yeah.
going 130 miles an hour from a quarter mile away,
Yeah.
and it's in the frame? And what's interesting is the last couple we've done is been, remember when the writer's strike was going on, so
Hmm.
a lot of cinema people
Hmm.
that weren't working,
Ah,
and
okay.
they're like
Yeah.
panicking, but we were working. Sports world didn't stop. We're working every day.
Right. Yeah.
There's something going on every day.
Mm.
So a lot of those students that came in for
Mhm.
these seminars were going to pivot
Mm.
and going, maybe I should learn how to do what they're doing. Well, I've always been fascinated with what they're doing. So it
Right.
was neat because Tom was able to bring cinema cameras in, and also the same equipment that we use for live sports productions and entertainment, talk shows.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it was such a great opportunity experience to show these students,
Hmm.
and they'd gather around,
Yeah.
and I take the camera part, and then they'd each take their time, and they'd put this together, put that together.
Yeah.
And the most fun part for me is asking the questions
Yeah.
about, and what was interesting too with the cinematographer people, they go, well, who's doing the focus?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we do.
Yeah.
You zoom and focus. You
Right.
have to follow that ball, or you have to follow, the seams from center field, out of the glove, out of the pitcher's hand, and follow that and rack focus all the way to the glove. It's just something you learn,
Yeah.
obviously. But they
I
were
can't even
just like
imagine that. Yeah.
they
Okay.
were just like mesmer. They're like, really, you guys,
Yeah.
you don't have a focus puller? And I'm like, well, I want to learn what you guys do. When
Yeah.
you're doing Big Bang Theory or American Idol, or
Right.
all these really cool
Yeah.
those kind of shows.
But you had a
So
taste of
that was
that.
really fun.
You had a taste of that in entertainment for a long, not a taste.
Yeah,
You had a
yeah,
huge a banquet of it. I mean,
yeah,
3,500 Oprah shows. I mean, that's
yeah,
like
yeah.
insane.
Over 3,500. Yeah, 25 years.
That's
Traveled the
crazy.
world with her. A
Yeah.
lot of ENG stuff too. That's a
Hmm.
whole nother
Hmm.
thing that I've been so fortunate and blessed to
Yeah.
get involved with, is
Hmm.
shooting, electronic news gathering, or ENG they
Yeah.
call it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and doing scenics, and they say, geez, just go out and give me shots of Central Park
Yeah.
for commercial breaks, and
Yeah.
coming back from commercials, and here's beautiful sunset in Central Park and people on their bikes and stuff like. I really, really love. I could just do that now at this point in my career. If they said, well, we got someone else to do the center court for you, you can you go out and shoot scenics.
It's funny because Victor Smith and I a few times went out when he was working for KTLA
Right.
and for Susan, the director, and we'd have to go out to the Alamo Dome, and sometimes I would have to like be a subject walking through his shot.
Right. We used to do
I
that.
just loved hanging out with him. It was super fun.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. That's a whole different
yeah.
conversation too. It's a lot of fun.
So a couple of last things, Patrick. So one of the things that I would have to do in my work, and I had to earn my way into the huddle,
Hmm.
especially starting with Pat Riley, who did not let me in for a while, and I had to kind of prove myself and all that. I've seen you in the huddle too,
Yeah.
from time to time, and
Hmm.
one of the guys that was the most demonstrative, I would say, was probably Coach Popovich, who just recently retired as a
Right.
coach. I love him to
Right.
death, but he was really tough to work around
Hmm.
because there was like a force field from the Spurs bench to the scorer's table. You know, as soon as you crossed that, like alarms were going off. You know what I mean?
Right.
And there were the gatekeepers, Tom James, the trainer Will. All those guys were always
And we're
protecting
still,
him.
yeah.
And
Tom's
he
still there
would
too.
always give me that like eyeball, like, are you seriously coming this close to me? I mean, I kind of, it was kind of a game, and I did, you know, I kind of embraced it after a while.
Yeah.
But do you have any horror stories of anything like that? Of anybody, you know,
Oh,
I remember
yeah.
back in the Piston days with Coach Daly, he didn't like it. Yeah,
I'm going to tell you one.
yeah,
You mentioned the Pistons,
yeah.
but overall, no. Everybody's always been really good. And what's interesting about Coach Pop, remember back in the early days before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
remember we used to do player interviews and coaches
Yeah,
interviews,
sure.
and on Saturday, and
Yeah,
I would set up the backdrop and do the lighting, get the E&G cameraman in there, and I did the audio, and we'd bring Pop in, we'd bring LeBron in, we'd bring Kobe in, we did
yeah.
everybody, just like you.
Remember?
And um, Pop was like one of the nicest guys.
Yeah,
It was unbelievable. But
yeah,
like you said, during the game
yeah,
and stuff like that, no,
yeah,
get the hell out,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Look,
But you,
yeah, he was a
you bring him in
military
for an
guy. Yeah, he,
yeah, you
yeah.
bring him in for an interview,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no fans, or it's just this very kind of intimate setting with either Mike Breen or whoever was actually
Yeah.
asking the questions at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But he was really great. But a real quick horror story.
Yeah.
It was probably 1988 or
Mm-hmm.
89,
Mm-hmm.
and I went up to it was an ENG shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I was hired for a couple days to live with the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And so was it Windsor, Canada,
Windsor,
where
Canada,
the
right
where the
across.
training facility was.
Yeah,
And I went up there, and
they had a training facility in Windsor, Canada.
Windsor, Canada. I
Totally didn't know
remember
that.
we were in Windsor
Okay,
because they hadn't built the palace yet.
okay.
And where were we playing
They
then?
were
At the
playing in the Silver
Silverdome?
Dome. Yeah.
Silverdome, right.
Wow.
So anyway, this was preseason. I think it was preseason. A long time ago,
Yeah.
but I remember distinctly what happened. Um, so I got hired to do this, and I've got this clunky camera, and we got the light kits and all this stuff, and we're shooting them practicing, staying out of the way, off to the side, and going under the basket and getting all this B-roll
Yeah.
and shootings. We'd put a mic on daily, and him coaching and
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. Well, then there came they wanted to do this scene in the locker room.
Yeah.
So I went in early. Daly knew about it. In fact, he said, "Oh yeah, yeah, come on in," blah blah blah. And there were a couple players, stragglers in there, and I just kind of take a seat, and I got my camera, and Isaiah Thomas sits right next to me. I forget who was to my left, and I'm sitting there with this camera and getting ready to shoot this kind of like, I guess, a meeting,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
team meeting or something. And I'm not going to use any swear words, but Lambeer walks in,
I could just imagine.
and he looks at me,
Yeah.
and he goes, "Get that effing camera. I don't know who the F you think you are. You don't belong here."
Oh
And
my God.
I mean, I was new. I
Yeah.
mean, I was pretty new to all this I hadn't really started doing NBA yet,
Mm-hmm.
much with just local bull stuff, but I hadn't started with NBC yet
Yeah.
in the 90-91 season. And so I'm like, "Oh my God." And I mean, he got right up in me, and he's yelling and screaming. And then he stops, and Isaiah starts laughing, and
Yeah.
he goes, "We're just kidding."
Oh,
And he goes,
jeez.
"Oh yeah, I'm just kidding." But
Oh,
it
yeah.
was a scary moment.
They test you. They do. I've been through the gauntlet too, man. I remember
Yeah,
in the Bulls locker room that era too. It's
yeah.
crazy.
See, now you had this great access. I mean, you
Yeah.
had way more access than we did. We weren't really allowed much in there unless it was
Mm.
the end of a series
Sure.
and they won the championship or whatever. That's when we'd get in the locker rooms. But you were living with them. You were
Yeah.
living with Kobe. You were living with Shaq,
Yeah.
and
Well,
all.
I was really fortunate that working for the NBA and then being with the Lakers team photographer, there's so much trust built up over the
Right.
years, and then being able to piggyback on NBA entertainment.
Yeah.
Andy Thompson and the Winnick brothers and everybody else who had that great access.
Yeah.
I watched The Last Dance, and I just remembered all of those moments
Hmm.
of it being like
Yep.
right next to them. Nat Butler and I would always compare notes like, wow, remember when we were in
Yeah.
there too?
I got some really good, there's some really good video of Michael and I walking in together, and
Hmm.
when he was carrying his shoes, when he wore those shoes and got
Oh,
the
yeah,
bloody
yeah.
feet,
Yeah.
and at the
Right.
garden, and I'm walking back in the hallway with the ENG camera doing
Yeah.
his arrival, and you were always there. In fact,
Yeah.
I have a picture that you took of me,
Hmm.
of Michael, me and Michael together.
Uh,
It's on my phone.
you know what? Can you send that to me? 'Cause we'll
I
put that.
can,
We'll
yeah.
put it that in the
It's a
video and also in our social media because I probably don't have it anymore. I believe it's difficult to find.
it's a great shot with Michael walking up the ramp at Madison
Awesome.
Square Garden,
Oh yeah.
and he's carrying those shoes,
Great. No, I'd love
and
to
you
see it.
framed it.
Hmm.
So I'm walking backwards. There I am. There's Michael. It was like perfectly framed, and
Really?
he's
Did you
actually we
sure
were
I shot
talking.
it? And probably Nat Butler shot it if it was perfectly framed.
I thought it was you.
Might have been. I'm kidding, but it would be awesome if you could send that, and
Yeah,
I'll figure it out with Nat who shot it.
yeah.
Patrick, last thing, man, I wanted to find out what you're up to now with directing because I know last 4 or 5 years you've been doing that. You've been doing music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Tell me about that. It's not a transition or a pivot in any way, but it's just in addition to your day
Kind
job, pretty much.
yeah, it's kind of a, and it pretty much just takes place during the summer.
Mm-hmm.
In Chicago, we have two local venues.
Mm-hmm.
One holds approximately 10,000 people, the other one about 40,000 people. Every
Mm.
band comes through Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody comes through Chicago.
Yeah.
A lot of them travel their own camera group and
Mm-hmm.
production people,
Right.
like Paul McCartney. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot of them do, but a
Yeah.
lot of them don't.
Yeah.
A lot of the older bands too, which the bands that I grew up with,
Yeah.
they're kind of on a shoestring sort of budget, but they come into town. We
Uh-huh.
have these giant video screens. We
Mm-hmm.
have monitors in all the suites.
Mm-hmm.
But the giant screens are for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I used to always do. I'd run camera for them,
Yeah.
and the music I loved. Then an opportunity opened up to where they said, "Oh, why don't you direct it and TD it?" So it's
Oh,
just me.
cool.
So I'm
Awesome.
at the switcher,
Yeah.
all the monitors, but it's not that big of a show. Four cameras.
It's fun though. What if
Sometimes we'll put an extra POV on the drum riser,
yeah, yeah.
to give me an escape route.
Yep, yep.
Um, but
Hmm.
I love music. If you look
I
behind
can
me,
see, my friend. Yes.
I've got guitars and
So guitar's your instrument? Is what you play?
bass,
Oh, you
actually
play
bass
bass.
guitar.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gary
Uh,
W. Talent, one of the
the
great bassists
lonely
in the
the
world.
lonely bass guitar. But
That's awesome.
yeah, so these bands come in, and whether it's Chicago, REO
Hmm.
Speedwagon, Earth, Wind and Fire,
Hmm.
uh, Goo Goo Doll,
Yeah.
and then we also do in the bigger, larger venue. That's where Celine Dion will come
Hmm.
in, or
Hmm.
some of the bigger acts
Yeah,
that
sure. Yeah.
travel that, I just love it. And again, that's something. If someone said, "Hey, you want to go tour with and cut Paul McCartney's show for 8 months," I'd be gone.
That's
I,
awesome. Well,
I would love to do that, even more so than running the camera. So
listen, man, you and I are kindred spirits because if somebody called me from John Landau's office, who runs Bruce Springsteen's thing, hey, you want to go on tour with Bruce like for 6 months or 8 months? I'm like, NBA, see you later. And they do that. They do that at any moment.
yeah,
But unfortunately, that
yeah.
fortunately for them, they have a great tour photographer, Rob DeMartin, and of course
Mm.
Danny Clinch comes in, and all these really great photographers. So
Do you remember Paul Natkin?
no, I didn't know Paul.
Oh,
I know Neil Preston, of course, but
Paul,
yeah.
yeah. Look up Paul Natkin.
Okay, I will.
He was Oprah's photographer when we
Ah,
first started, but he
okay.
does all the rock and roll. And
Uh-huh.
when we did the Grateful Dead,
Yeah.
their final tour at Soldier Field,
Mm-hmm.
and Paul's there shooting.
Awesome.
Still photographer, but he's
That's
yeah,
great.
Paul Natkin.
Yeah,
He's
I'll definitely look him up. I
yeah,
did you see the documentary Road Diary about Springsteen's
I did not.
recent tour? Well, it's like he's about to tour again, but his recent tour, and it was a lot of great, unbelievable concert footage.
Mm.
Yeah, it was really incredibly done.
I I can go down that rabbit hole on YouTube and watch all
Yeah.
the behind the scenes of the making of
Yeah.
documentaries.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Tom Zimney is the director, longtime director for
Yeah.
Bruce. Anyway, my friend, it was so great catching up and
Yeah.
really sitting down and chopping it up here.
Um,
I can't leave you without knowing the genesis of the nickname Cheese. Tom asked me to ask, and I've always wondered. So, what is
Yeah,
it?
again, I'm not from Wisconsin. I really don't like cheese all that much to eat.
Right?
But we were doing a show. Andy Rosenberg was directing, and my name's Patrick.
Yeah.
And I think at the time everybody called me Pat. But anyway, there were three Pats on the show.
Yeah.
So did you ever you knew Dave Atkins, Too Tall,
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Oh, Too
obviously,
Tall, of course.
who
Yeah. Yeah.
recently passed away.
Yeah. Mhm.
So we were on the NBC game, and the director and Andy said, "We can't have three Pats. You guys got to pick nicknames." And most people did have nicknames.
Right.
Most of the camera operators, and I was still new
Yeah.
to them. And Craig Pianko, another one of my
Hmm.
absolute favorite guys
Yeah.
and mentor back then. Camera, he did Under the Basket, Under the Left Basket for NBC,
Hmm.
and he always called me Cheese Fondue Rondou because my last name's Rondou, but it has a U on
As a
the
you at
end.
the
So
end. Yeah. Right.
a lot of people say Rondou, and it was Cheese Fondue Rondou. And
Yeah.
so he said that over the headsets, and Andy said, "Call him Cheese," because you couldn't have obviously Cheese Fondue Rondou.
Yeah.
So that's really how it stuck, and it's
I
really
love
just a
it.
TV. It's just a TV thing. It's not. I don't go to my bank or
Yeah,
the
people don't
grocery
call
store
you
and
that in
go,
the
"Oh,
real
cheese is
world.
here."
Yeah, right. I love it though, because that's all everyone ever calls you is cheese. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I had so many people walk up and I see them look down at my credential and they look up and they go, "I never knew your real name."
right, right. Yeah, the president of the Kings is Kelly Cheeseman, and everyone just calls him Cheese, but
Oh,
that's
see, I
like
didn't
his
know that.
name, you know. So it's interesting. Patrick, listen, man, I might see you from afar if I attend one of these games coming up. You know, later on in the
Okay,
playoffs, maybe in the finals. The NBA is bringing me out once in a while to
good.
do whatever, but
Absolutely.
without a camera, I must say, without a camera, the camera.
Really, without a
Oh no, I've
camera?
hung the cameras up. I retired after
No.
last season. Yeah, I
Oh,
physically couldn't do it. It's 43 years on the court,
yeah.
over
No, I get it.
5,000 games. It took its toll on my back, and
I get it.
since and we didn't even talk about the bubble. That might be another conversation.
Oh, yeah, that was
But
best time of my life.
yeah, it was quite the adventure for sure. I don't know if any of us would ever want to do it again, but it was we survived.
I
That's all I
would.
can say. You would. You probably and Victor would probably be the only ones who would do it. So
We loved it. Victor and I, we loved it. It was a great experience. But
yeah,
yeah, when you have kids at home though,
yeah,
and the wife, and
right,
obviously you're isolated for 100 days.
yeah, yeah,
That didn't. And I get that,
hmm,
and I don't have that
right,
situation. So for
right.
me, it was like I was in heaven.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing you every day, man.
Yeah.
Um, well, listen, my friend, safe travels, first of all. I
Thank
know
you.
you'll get the great shots. I love seeing your work. Now I'm sitting on my couch. I can watch it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But I got to thank you, man, for all the professionalism that you showed all throughout all the years that we literally were side by side.
Yeah.
And so many of those like high tension, stressful scrums at the end of like a finals or whatever it was.
Right.
And we all had to work together, and and you were the pro's pro. I mean, I got to tell you,
Boy.
man,
Well,
for
thank
sure.
you, and you too. And I love working around all the photographers and lately just doing the arrivals and stuff.
Yeah,
There's all these photographers now. I have to get in front of the
yeah,
player and walk him for 30 seconds. I need at least 30 seconds of video. But I go to them all
hmm,
individually and
yeah,
say, "Here's what I got to do.
sure,
Can help me here." But I'm just doing a couple players. I'm not doing the whole team,
hmm,
and we all work really well together.
yeah,
And but I miss you.
yeah. I miss
So,
it too. I mean,
yeah.
any player. Kobe and I had this conversation. What you miss the most is the camaraderie,
Hmm.
the routine. Even though I complained about it most of the time, but
Right.
seeing the same people and it just became a family, a giant extended family. But
Absolutely.
I get a kick out of it. I go to games now. I was at a Warriors, the play-in game, and I got to see a lot of people before the game. And then I can sit and have a beer in the stands. That isn't bad either.
Yeah. So
So
yeah, so we'll be in New York Saturday and Monday.
very cool. Say hi to my buddy Nat.
I will. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah, I talked to him last night after the game, and to have the Knicks be relevant again is like a gift.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's wonderful. Yeah,
Nat's the Andy uh, on the East
yeah,
Coast,
we're like the yin and
and
the yang.
you're the Nat on the West Coast.
Right. Yeah, it worked out great because he's got the two teams and always had.
Yeah,
Whether it was New Jersey or New York, now it's Brooklyn. I had the two teams in L.A. And then we would meet at the key events during the year. So
right.
and our friendship goes back. I think we go back to 1984. So it's kind of a long, long friendship. And I don't know if you've seen his book or gotten a copy of it.
He gave me one
Courtside. Oh my
actually and
God,
autographed it for me.
unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
God bless him,
Yeah,
and I'm so happy
he's
for him. Yeah,
so sweet. I didn't ask about it. I wasn't even aware of it.
yeah, yep,
And so I tell everybody, go to Amazon.
yep,
You got to get this book because it is really pretty unbelievable.
yeah, for
There's
sure.
the
Yeah,
photographs. Yeah,
yeah,
it's really great. So,
yep,
but it's just one last thing really quick.
yeah, yeah.
In talking about NBA and all the other sports that
Mm-hmm.
we've done,
Mm-hmm.
from golf and football and baseball and Olympics and blah blah blah. NBA is the only one where I've really gotten really, really good friendships
Mm-hmm.
out of
Mm-hmm.
because it's so intimate.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing hockey, you're behind glass.
Yeah.
If you're doing, NFL, there's not this intimacy where, and you
Mm-hmm.
see these guys all the time,
Yeah. Yeah. Very
more
true.
so than if you're doing a football game
Mm-hmm.
or a baseball game or Olympics. You never get up and close and personal
Right.
like we do with NBA, and that's why
Mhm.
I still enjoy doing it. I still like that whole, Steph Curry
Sure.
giving you a wink or
Yeah.
coming over and shaking your hand. I mean,
Yeah. I
how
love
how
that.
does that happen?
No, I love
You
that.
know,
And they respect. Look, they respect what we
yeah,
do, and what we do makes them look
they
good.
do.
So, you know, um, well, listen, man.
Okay,
I wish you great shots coming up. I know that you'll get them, so there's not any concern there. But
give it my best shot.
yeah, but say hi to everybody there on the
I
baseline, the
will,
sideline
Andy.
for me, okay? Especially
Thank you,
my
Andy.
good friend Doris Burke. We
Oh,
went in the Hall of Fame the same year together in 2018,
great.
and I love her to death, and so proud of everything that she's
I'll see
accomplished. And
her this weekend, and I'll
yeah,
make sure I tell her, give her a big hug for you.
please do, because all of these women who follow in her footsteps, it's just so heartwarming for me.
Yeah,
And here at Legends of Sport, we try to promote women in sports as much as we can. So
yeah.
she's the flag bearer.
You've
So
had Doris on, haven't you? Or
I haven't met her son. No.
no? Have you had her on
Oh, I've
your
had.
show?
Oh, I'm sorry. You said it's, son. I did have her on. I had her
Oh,
on
okay.
early, like her first season, 2018,
Oh, wow.
2019, something like that. Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Yeah, everybody loves Doris. It's
yeah,
so cute at the end of the game, and she'll pause for pictures with everybody.
yeah.
They all
She's the
come
best,
down, and they
greatest.
want to take pictures with her.
Yeah,
Not Mike
I
Breen,
know.
not Richard Jefferson.
Yeah,
It's Doris Burke.
yeah. Well, say hi to all those guys.
I
Mike's been
will.
on the podcast. Richard came to an event that Nat and I did for Nat's book launch in L.A., which was really sweet and wonderful of him. Brought his
Oh,
sons to
nice.
the event. So I'll see you soon, my friend. I hope.
All right, buddy.
All right, man. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
All righty.
Wow. Patrick and I could have gone on for hours. So many shared memories of our time working together at big NBA games and events, and his incredible history. So happy I could nail Patrick down during the busy NBA playoff season. Big thanks to our good friend Tom Fletcher from Memento and Fujinon for helping to put us together. Patrick and Tom are doing great work together, mentoring and tutoring the next generation of camera operators and videographers. Thanks for tuning into this episode, folks, and for continuing to support the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm. Please follow them on Instagram at FujifilmX_US. That's at FujifilmX_US. Folks, please tell all your friends to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Legends of Sport, and of course our Instagram at Legends of Sport, and my photography can be found on Instagram at ADB Photo Inc. Thanks as always to our producer, Carlin Barker, and our editors, Sean Gosser and Addison Shao. Thanks again, everyone, for checking out this episode. We'll be back next week with another great episode on the Legends of Sport podcast presented by Fujifilm.